Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Denise. I'm a manifestation coach, and if you would like coaching, there's a link in the description below to check out my services. Today I'm going to discuss intrusive thoughts and handling those, and I want to start by reiterating that your 3D reality is nothing more than your thoughts, assumptions, and beliefs, also known as your self concept, also known as your state of consciousness, being reflected from you and projected back to you. So you're viewing your internal state through a sensory experience of sight, sound, touch, smell, right? And so you don't ever have to be afraid of not only the thoughts you're thinking, but also the things you're manifesting. Even though there are plenty of things that we manifest that are undesirable and that we would prefer to not happen, ultimately, this 3D reality is not all that you are, and it is not all that you will experience. It is like a drop in the bucket compared to what you are. You're everything, you're eternity, you're an eternal being, you're all that ever is, ever was, and ever will be. And any perceived limitations in this reality, the non-conditioned I am-ness of you knows that this is temporary, and this isn't detrimental. Anything that happens in this reality isn't for real. It doesn't actually matter. It's just for the sake of consciousness to experience itself through the illusion of something outside of us, through the illusion of something separate, right? So that we can have those experiences and have those feelings and get into that, what is it like to have emotion, and what is it like to be excited or disappointed or sad or happy? But it's not who you really are. So you're living in this 3D reality, which is a manifestation of your consciousness from the manifestation of a conditioned I am. And that conditioned I am is whoever you believe yourself to be in relation to this world around you, which is actually not the world around you, it's the world within you. So when we have negative thoughts, it can be really easy to fear them. And I went through a period of time where I was incredibly afraid of my negative thoughts for a while, like learning that my thoughts created. Initially, when I first learned it decades ago, I was like, oh no, great. Oh no, great. And then, I just kind of went through life and got over that. And then when I got serious years later about practicing a mental diet and really implementing this, I went so far in and went so deep into it that I started to give myself anxiety and panic attacks, and that lasted several months. But I got through that too. And even in that, it's like all these things that I manifested that were undesirable, not only like the internal anxiety and the panic attacks and the fear that I was having, but also the multiple breakups that I experienced and just losing things that I had manifested in and then losing them. Through all of that experience, I learned that I don't actually have to be afraid of these things manifesting, because after, I'm still fine. I'm still okay. And now there's a sense of I'm still okay because I'm alive and I'm well and everything's okay, but there's also the bigger sense of even if I weren't, I would still be okay. In fact, even more okay, right? Like even if something tragic had happened or whatever, like the things that I was afraid of happening, like with my health especially, I got to the point where I started to realize that this life and this experience, like I said, it's just a drop in the bucket. It's not true to who I am, and it's not all that there is, and it's not all that I will experience. And it's just like waking up from a dream, right? Like, obviously I don't know that, I haven't done that. I've woken up from a dream, but I haven't. I'm not consciously aware of leaving this body due to it not working anymore. I have had a couple out of body experiences, so I had to wait a minute actually. But nonetheless, I'm not consciously aware of what death is like. And so I was afraid of it for a while, right? But then I realized it's something, and this is something I told my kids for years, that it's inevitable, and so it can't be that bad, right? Like, it just can't be that bad. But that's not what this video is about. I don't want to get into that in this video. So I want to get back to the topic, which is, you don't have to be afraid of your intrusive thoughts. And actually, the best way to handle these thoughts is to first stop and question. Well, the very first step is to acknowledge them and accept them. Acknowledge how you're feeling. Don't try to bury it with a bunch of affirmations. Don't try to distract yourself from it immediately. Yes, all of this is about shifting your consciousness and learning to think thoughts that are more conducive to the state of consciousness you want to be in, that more further support the reality that you want to experience. However, pushing something down, ignoring it, running from it, or just trying to bury it with a bunch of other stuff is only going to make it bigger, whatever it is you're avoiding and pushing down and not just accepting within yourself. And so acceptance is the fastest way to move through anything. So you want to acknowledge how you're feeling and accept how you're feeling, put it in words, describe it to yourself, write it down on paper, do it in your mind, whatever feels good, but acknowledge, I'm feeling this way, and I'm feeling this way because, and go ahead and say it. Maybe it's because something happened in 3D. Maybe it's because something didn't happen. Maybe it's just because you're used to being worried about these types of things happening. But acknowledge it for yourself. Give yourself time and space to reflect on it, to look at it, to recognize it, but don't dwell in it. And then from there, question its validity. Is this true? And it's always not. Nothing is, right? It's always just the illusion of what we believe to be true is manifesting. But is this true? Do I need to be afraid of this? Is this because I'm trying to protect myself? And really talk to that version of you, because that's more often than not, that's what it is you are living in an experience that you have had in the past. So you have a stored memory of being hurt, being disappointed, being abandoned, being rejected, whatever it is. You have a stored memory of that in your subconscious. Your subconscious is trying to protect you from it, right? So you're reminding yourself, oh, remember this happened, and what about this? And you should be on the lookout for something like this, and what if they mean this instead, or what if they have these intentions? And it's all just trying to protect you from those painful memories that you have once experienced, trying to keep you from going through that again. And there is definitely a sense of ego or your I amness that is trying to hold you in that space because it's really familiar, right? Like if you're living from fear of rejection or fear of abandonment, that becomes who you are. You've identified yourself as someone that is afraid of getting left, is afraid of getting hurt because it's likely to happen, or it has happened before, so it may happen again. And either way, you're identifying yourself as that way. You have a conditioned I am of I am going to be hurt, I am going to be abandoned, I am going to be rejected. And so you are living from that end, and that part of you that's been identified like that is going to want to hold on to you. So hold you there. I shouldn't say it that way, but it wants to protect you, but it also wants to stay in what's familiar. And you're challenging that ego part. You're challenging that conditioned I am when you start doing affirmations, and when you start visualizing and scripting and doing any techniques that are getting you to think from a different end. When you're thinking from the end of I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm adored, I'm cherished, that's different than what you've been used to thinking from. And that part of you is going to want to stay there. So oftentimes people will start to see a little bit of progress within themselves and their 3D reality. And then they'll suddenly have these thoughts that feel so real and so powerful, or they'll struggle for a day or two, or spiral, for however long on end. And what that is that's that part of you saying, no, wait, this is who we are. I'm used to this. Don't change. Let's stay over here where it's safe. And again, it's all just protection. It's just trying to protect you. And so telling yourself, talking to that version of you and acknowledging it. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for doing your job. Thank you for trying to protect me. But we don't need to live there anymore. We can live from here. Expansion is okay. Expansion can be safe for me or for us, right? If you want to include it. But really, giving it a voice, giving yourself a voice, acknowledging it, recognizing what it is, and then saying, but we can also be over here, and this can be really safe for us too. This can be really beautiful. We can practice expecting the best case scenario. You know, I was definitely for a long time, a long, long time programmed to anticipate, imagine, expect, fear, be upset about, be sad about the worst case scenario for many things. Little day-to-day things wasn't really a big deal. But, you know, I was pretty positive when it came to like the day-to-day stuff. But the things that really mattered, right? Like my relationships and my finances and my health and things that were important to me and I had emotional attachment to, I was really programmed to expect and experience the worst case scenario. And as a result of that, when I started getting very serious about consciously creating and shifting my mental diet and working toward thinking from a different perspective, it became challenging at times because I didn't want to grow. I mean, I did, but there was a part of me that wanted to stay the same, where it was safe and where it was comfortable. And then that also resulted in extreme reactions to 3D, right? Like extreme disappointment when 3D wouldn't show up the way I had been affirming or scripting for it to show up. And so all of that, though, really was imperative and got me to where I am, which is a much more balanced level place of I've got this, everything's all good, right? Like there's human thoughts that show up from moment, whatever, from now and then, moment to moment, every once in a while. I can't remember what I was going to say. There are human thoughts that show up periodically, but they don't hold me like they used to. I don't have the same reaction. I don't fear them. There's not a strong emotional attachment. I don't think these thoughts are real. I don't give them value. I don't give them power. I don't engage. Even if I get caught up engaging for a period of time, that period of time is now minutes as previously compared to hours and days. And so it's just the practice, right? Like you will get there. And for me, I could say it took a very long time. And it wasn't even about the time. It was just that it took a lot of me persisting in manifesting things that seemed undesirable and that I thought I couldn't get through or wouldn't bounce back from, and me actually getting through them and bouncing back from them to really stand in that place of there ain't a damn thing I have to worry about. There just isn't. Like it's all good. It's all good. Everything is all good. And so that's a much better place to operate from than where I was previously operating from. So yeah, I want you to acknowledge how you're feeling. Don't shove it down. Don't bury it with affirmations. Don't freak out and think I gotta flip the thought. I gotta flip the thought. Just give it a minute. Acknowledge it. I'm feeling XYZ because I'm assigning meaning of XYZ or whatever, however you want to say it. I'm feeling this way because of this. But then recognize that the because of this is a perception that you're holding about what's manifested or about what you think may manifest or about your past. When I said what's manifested, I meant present moment. But nonetheless, it's all a perception. It's all the meaning you're assigning it, and recognizing that and then reinforcing that it's not true. It's not definitive. It's just a state you're experiencing. And you can experience something different. And what would that feel like? What would that look like? How would you think from that end? And who is that version of you? And again, like, thank you for showing up and trying to protect us, me, but we don't need that anymore. We're good. We've got this. Our best form of protection is to think the most loving thoughts of ourselves and the people in our reality. That's how I most effectively can protect myself, is to assume that I don't need protection, to assume that everything's working in my favor, to assume that this whole world and universe is supporting my growth and my expansion, and that no matter what, I'm always going to land on the net. If I jump, I'm okay. It's all good. I can expect the best case scenario. So what I was going to say also is that when I was noticing, and it was being mirrored back to me, that I was focused on the worst case scenario, I just kind of started to chant the mantra best case scenario in my mind throughout the day, like several times, periodically, here and there. I would write it down. I would put a note on my, whatever, my mirror, my laptop, the back of my cell phone. I like to put sticky notes there. Best case scenario. And I would just remind myself, oh yeah, best case scenario. And it's just about that. Like, practicing will get you there. You don't have to go for, perfection. There is no perfection. You're already perfect. It's all good. It's just about practicing to think the way you want to think. Practicing to think from the end of fulfillment is really what it is. And practicing it periodically and over a period of time, or frequently and consistently, is your best bet in actually changing your self-concept and actually shifting into a different state of consciousness. So I've said this before, I'm not a big fan of the binge method. I tried the binge method and it got me anxiety. Now, it took a while to get me there, but it got me there. And I'm not saying that has to be the case. Some people love that and it's great. But if you are dealing with repeated patterns, or what feels like repeated patterns of very similar situations, very similar thoughts, very similar outcomes or expected outcomes, where you're let down, you're rejected, you're abandoned, things like that, then it is in your best interest to practice a consistent, steady practice of thinking from the end of fulfillment and really exploring, what would that be like if I were this version? What would it be like if I had this experience? If I was the person in this relationship? If I was the person in that career? If I was the person with that amount of financial security? If I was the person with that body, with that health, with that face, with that style, whatever it is you're manifesting for yourself, just start practicing what it would be like if you were that person. How would you think as that version? And then start to find ways to implement that into your day-to-day life. Like I said, Post-it notes, listening to yourself say the affirmations, listening to it as a form of auto-suggestion where you're saying, you are, Denise, you are that person. Denise, you do have XYZ. Post-it notes, scripting, inner conversations, they're all amazing ways, and they're all so beneficial, and you can use them all at different points in time and just practice. Visualization, that's the other one. All right. Okay. There's my video for today. I will see you all next video. Bye.